Alrighty, I've got an exciting one. FFG has given me 3 exclusive spoiler cards to show off to you today, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Now, I know a lot of you are probably here just to see the cards, but I've decided to add a little bit extra to this video. There is also going to be an early deck build for the newest leader, which you may have just seen previewed a few minutes ago, and that is DJ. So I'm going to review that leader after I show you these spoilers, and then show you a little bit of a deck preview using that new leader. So let's jump right into it. Hit that subscribe button, and if you're interested in some more content from me, you can check me out on Patreon as well. Let's go. So I start all my videos off, or most of them off, with a little bit of a table of contents. We're going to jump right into these new cards. Now, when I review cards and leaders, the focus is typically for competitive play and competitive premier play in this case. And that's the lens I'm going to take when I cover these cards, in case you haven't been to this channel before. But after I show you these cards, we're going to get into the DJ review. Really cool new leader, which I'm going to put up on the screen just in a moment. And then, yeah, we'll get a little deck. So DJ, I'm not going to review him right now, but I think it's important that you at least know what he does, because the first preview card that I'm going to show you is entirely tied to this leader, in my opinion. So let's go and check out Libertine. This is a new double cunning 4 cost space vehicle. It is a 3/7, so it's got really hefty stats for 4 cost. Underworld vehicle transport traits. It's a rare, and it has very interesting text. So the first line, this unit gets +1/+0 for each captured card it's guarding. Naturally, that's going to tie in pretty well into the DJ leader, who you can get cost reductions on cards by letting your own units capture them. So Libertine seems like a pretty decent unit to start tucking units under. It's going to get bigger. And then an even more interesting when played, but not the first time we've seen something very similar to this. And it says, when played, choose an enemy unit and a non-leader friendly unit. The enemy unit captures the friendly unit. So you may have seen a similar line of text on the new legendary Lando Calrissian. Basically, when you play the card, your opponent will end up capturing one of your units, right? So it's a downside, sort of, but of course, let's talk about how this works with DJ. So this is going to be really important for Lando as well. I think both these cards synergize very well with DJ. So you can make Libertine cost 3 with DJ's ability. So you can actually just play this on turn 2 as long as you have another unit in play. This will then get tucked under your other friendly unit, right? Your friendly unit captures Libertine. It then resolves when played. That's the text on DJ, that the capture happens before the when played effects. So now you have Libertine's when played effect on in the ether, and you will then have your opponent capture the unit that is capturing Libertine, thus freeing Libertine immediately, and then your opponent will, of course, get the other unit captured. This works the same way with Lando, actually. So Lando, you can play him for 6 with DJ, right? Tuck him under DJ's under another friendly unit, have your opponent capture the friendly unit that's capturing Lando. With Lando's when played, heal your 6, and you just got Lando for 6 cost with basically no downside. And Libertine, of course, as a turn 2 play, theoretically a 3 cost unit that is a giant space unit that is very difficult to remove, right? There's not a lot of things that can brawl with this. It dodges most targeted removal in the game as well. So it's a pretty interesting card with DJ. I don't think this card does much else other than be played with DJ, though, because as a 4 cost unit and outside of like this capture specific synergy, there's not a lot going on for it. You're not usually going to play decks with tons of capture in them, so the first line of text on this card is not going to do much if it's not in a DJ deck. And the when played, you know, it's much more interesting of a when played when this card comes down for 3 cost and just auto freeze itself. It's with DJ, it's not really doing much cheating, so to speak, when you're playing it for 4. But this looks like a core card for part of the DJ deck. The DJ deck, which I will talk about a little later, is going to, I think, involve a lot around like freeing multiple units at the same time. And Libertine is, of course, a great host for capturing other units. So, cool new rare. Let's get to the next card. This is Cicatro Vizago. He is a 3-cost Cunning unit. He's a 3/4 Underworld. He's an uncommon. And he has an on-attack ability that says reveal the top card of your deck. An opponent may pay 1. If they don't, you draw that card. So, let's start with the ability. The ability is okay. Your opponent getting the choice here is, of course, not great for us, right? We much would have preferred to, like, get to choose. And your opponent, if they have a resource that they're not going to spend that turn anyway, they can, of course, blank this whole ability. If they don't care about the card that you're going to draw, they can let you. So, it's a plus on attack. I mean, you'd rather have it than not, but it's not, like, game-breaking or anything. As far as the stats, we do, at this point in development, have seen a lot of 3/5s. 3/5 is kind of the core stat line at 3 cost. So I do call a 3/4 for 3 at this point in the game's lifespan understated. It is not on par with most of the powerful 3 costs in the game. So he does have the Underworld trait, and right now the main synergies, of course, with that is Cad Bane. Now, Cad Bane is flooded with 3-drop options, and I don't think Vizago here really usurps any of them. Overall, it's like a solid card. There's nothing particularly wrong with this card. I don't think it's going to be quite on the power level needed to push constructed play, but it's going to be a pretty good limited card because it's got, in limited, this is a good stat line. It's also only 1 color, which means it's much easier to draft it earlier when you don't know if you're going to be like in villain or heroism. And this fits, of course, into both aspects there. So do note that, like, triggers like this, when your opponent gets to choose, they get a huge downgrade most of the time. There's lots of cards like this. We've seen it all the way from set 1 with I Am Your Father. The issue, of course, is you're always getting the worst half of whatever it is. And even if both halves are good, they're usually not good all the time. And letting your opponent have agency there is a pretty big downside with a lot of cards that have similar triggers that let your opponent kind of make the decision. So that's it for Mr. Vizago here, and we're going to go into the last card, and we got a new plot card. This is The Wrong Ride. It is a 3-cost event in Cunning. It's an uncommon, and it says exhaust 2 enemy resources, and it has plot. So we don't see exhausting enemy resources on very many cards, although Vizago just had kind of an optional version of that. We've seen it on, like, Sabine's Masterpiece with the Cunning trigger. It's not common, and I think there's another yellow unit. One of the huts can do something similar, but this is like the most direct way I think we've seen. There's just no way to prevent this right now. Do note, you are paying 3 for this effect. It exhausts 2 enemy resources, so you are on the wrong side of the wrong ride in this transaction. However, you get to choose when you do this. Now, it has plot, which means on the leader flip turn, you can do this and it doesn't cost you a card. That's cool. You also just have agency in turns of when you want to do this. And this is like a really interesting card. I really like this design. I don't know how how powerful it's going to be yet, but this can really put like a wrench in someone's plans in a turn. Exhausting 2 resources can really brick someone's turn. Imagine just playing this on turn 2 against an opponent who doesn't have any 1-drops in their deck. You just know they don't play 1-drops. You're basically just saying we both skip our turn. Is that powerful? Maybe. It might be, depending on the kind of deck you're building. Later in the game, where you flip your leader, being able to exhaust 2 enemy resources might mean you're protecting your leader. You're no longer in danger of getting one-shot. Imagine you could, like, Plo Koon right now in Quinlan's doing 7 damage to leaders. Well, if they don't have 5 resources, you no longer need to worry about that Plo Koon for a turn. Things like that. And having plot is, of course, a really big upside, but I don't think this card's necessarily dead outside of the plot play, right? There are ways where you can sequence this into a turn, and just like, your opponent needs to play their 7-drop, their Luke, their Vader, and they're planning on that, and you're making them play something else, something they might have not prepared for, something that might not impact the board the way they need to. And even though you're on the negative end of this transaction, if you've established board control over your opponent, you're sometimes okay losing a bit in the resource equity as long as you don't let them take control, right? This can break things like Super Laser Blast on a key turn. So really interesting design here, really interesting card. Don't know if this will end up making the cut. This is one that really just need to start putting it in decks and seeing what happens with it, but I like the card. All right. We ready for DJ? So if you're checked out now, you got the 3 new cards. I'll see you later, but if you're interested in talking about this leader, stay with me a little longer. So I referenced this guy a lot when I was talking about Libertine. So he's one of the wildest leader designs, and we've seen another one yesterday with Bale. So I think this week might be the wild leaders coming into the set. So double cunning aspected leader. We'll start with that before I talk about anything else. That is, of course, very unique. It's the first time we've seen that, and very interesting. Is it good? Let's just start with, is it good? Is it better than having heroic or villainy? And the answer is mostly no. If I'm being frank, I'm just being honest. It's not, because if you look through most competitive decks right now, most of the cards in them are dual aspected cards that have a color and then either villainy or heroism. It's the bulk of what are the top tier cards in the game. There aren't very many, of course there are some, single aspect dominating cards. And you don't get to play any heroism or villainy in this deck unless you want to pay off aspect penalties for them. Your plus side here is that you get to free roll the cunning double aspect cards and then also play another color. So you can do yellow, red. But you can only play the single aspect red cards. You can't play any of the heroism villainy versions. And of course, you can't do the yellow heroism or yellow villainy cards either. And while getting to free roll the double aspect yellow cards is quite strong, there are a decent amount of good ones. It is a really big penalty to not get the heroism or villainy stuff. So there's going to have to be something else to carry this leader, because the aspect element of it is not the carry. That is not the positive here. It is very interesting, and it's not a huge negative, right? If he just had yellow, it would be way, way worse. And we get to fill our deck with a good chunk of double aspect cards, maybe upwards of 15 double yellow cards. It's the other 35 cards that we might have a little more of an issue with, because we don't get to play the powerful heroism villainy stuff. All right, the rest. The really weird stuff. Choose a friendly unit with an action. Choose a friendly unit. Play a unit from your hand. It costs 1 less. The chosen unit captures it, right? So you're discounting a unit. You play it. It gets captured by something. The when played effects happen after the unit is captured. So we talked about how that works really well with Libertine. You can pay 3 for Libertine. It gets tucked under one of your other units. You then make Libertine's trigger happen so that your opponent captures the unit capturing Libertine, and bam, you freed your Libertine. The other thing this does is kind of make your units hatch into more units. So if you have a real threat in play, your opponent needs to remove, sticking units under it at a discount is a positive, because your opponent's going to need to remove that unit anyway, and now you get to kind of free roll that next unit. It just hatches out of the defeated unit, and you of course paid 1 less. It's going to be probably pretty important to stack your deck with a decent amount of when played effects, so that you at least get something out of the unit the turn you play it. It's going to be really difficult to just put stats under stuff. Your opponent will have very little reason to just free your units. In that case, it won't be as good. So you want the units that come out to maybe be impactful on the board. You also need good hosts. Cheap units that can stay on the board so that you have time to use them to capture other units. Libertine, of course, is a fantastic one. It has tons of health, but we're going to need to find more. All right, we're not done with the wild ride that is DJ, so 6 cost. Do you need a lift? Because he's going to provide one. He's a 4/6 Underworld. He has Saboteur. Stats-wise, a little on the low end, right? We don't love 6 health on 6 deploy. I've pressed on that a lot with covering a ton of leaders. It has been a very big liability on 6 deploy leaders to have a health pool that is small enough to get one shot off the board. But he also has kind of a wild ability. He says friendly units that are rescued enter play ready, right? So all those units that you may have captured, self-captured with his front ability, if you flip him and then release them, they'll just come into play ready, and then you can go attack your opponent for a ton. So maybe the idea here is to create some kind of jailbreak scenario where you have a few units tucked under something, and then you find a way to free him, and then they all come in ready, and you have a bunch of units all at once to press your opponent. Now, how do we do that? Let's take a look at some of the main synergies with DJ. So, Libertine, I've talked about a ton. We can skip that. So, main synergies beyond that. New Adventure. Fantastic card here because this will release all the captured units, right? You can new adventure your own unit that's capturing something. You bounce it up, you replay it for free, and then everything that was captured is going to get released. If DJ's in play, they will, of course, come into play ready. So that's a really interesting synergy here. It also plays well with the fact that we probably want a bunch of when played effects in this deck, so you can re-trigger those when played effects with New Adventure. I think this is going to be a really core piece. It happens to be a double yellow card. If you look in that second row, you see Jump to Lightspeed. Very similar card to New Adventure, only works on vehicles. So if you're going to move into a more vehicle-heavy version of a DJ deck, then you can have even more redundancy with New Adventure. You have more ways to kind of release your units. The really big one is Evacuate. And I think this it could unlock Evacuate like we haven't seen before, because on the DJ turn, and it lines up correctly there. It costs 6 on the 6 resource turn. You flip DJ, you evacuate, you remove everything in play, and then all of a sudden everything that was captured is in play. This can be sort of a one-sided board wipe, temporary board wipe, of course. It's not destroying the units, but that could be a major turn. Pirated Starfighter, a very interesting card in this because you can essentially play this on turn 1 for no downside, right? If you have a 1-drop in your deck, you play the 1-drop, you use DJ's ability, Pirated Starfighter gets tucked under that 1-drop, then Pirated Starfighter's when played goes off, you bounce your 1-drop back to your hand, and then Pirated Starfighter comes out. Bam, you've got your 2/4 raid 1 on turn 1. This can also just work on other turns as a cheap utility card that can pretty easily come in. It can also free other units, right? If you have something capturing something else, Pirated Starfighter can come in, return the unit that is doing the capturing back to your hand, and bam, you hatch another thing. So nice synergy there. Mandalorian and Cantina Bouncer, these are just powerful when played effects in double yellow. They are just really strong cards that happen to work decently well here because, Cantina Bouncer will cost 4. So that's Waylay that costs 4. It's not great to pay 4 for Waylay, but this will also hatch into a unit eventually, and that's important, right? It's important that you at least do something with these units that are coming into play with cost reduction, because otherwise you're going to fall too far behind. And Mandalorian is kind of similar, right? You can play him and immediately exhaust 2 units, so you get a benefit from him coming down a turn early, and then you find a way to release him. Jump to Lightspeed I mentioned, and lastly, in blue, Lando Calrissian, right? This is the similar text to Libertine. When played, you may choose an enemy unit and a friendly non-leader unit. And if you do, you heal 6, and then the enemy unit captures the friendly unit. Now, you can play this guy for 6. He gets captured. Then you do the when played. They capture the guy capturing Lando, and bam, you've just played Lando for 6, and with 0 downside here, right? He was already going to do make your opponent capture one of your units, and now you've just gotten a 1 cost reduction on him. So if you can see here, there's only 1 blue card, but because of Lando, that was the early deck I wanted to kind of work with here. So really, this is a very early draft. Please don't take everything here as like set in stone. I'm just thinking, let's play some resilient early plays. Got 3 Crafty Smugglers and 3 Secretive Sages. They're good targets for capturing units because they're likely to stick around for a turn so that you can start tucking units under them. We're playing 6 1-drops for some synergy with Pirated Starfighter, and for some, again, being able to play a 1-drop and then use it to capture means you're going to have, like, they're going to be pretty simple to remove off the board. It's nice to have cheap cards. They can cost 0 with DJ's ability, so even on turn 1, you can go like Crafty Smuggler, put a Greedo under it, Crafty Smuggler, put an A-Wing under it, so that you can make sure that when something is defeated, you don't completely lose tempo. Blasters are just good, so I added them. We got the core double yellow cards, Bodhi, Cantina, Bouncer, Mandalorian. They all have when played effects. The Libertine and the Cunning double aspect card is in there as well. We got New Adventure and Evacuate. I've talked about those cards. I put Lobot in here because I think just having Sentinels, like, this is another way to force your opponent to interact with your own units. And it's why I've also put the Rotunda Senate guards. I thought they were maybe the best version of like a 4-drop Sentinel. There's, of course, the Perimeter AT-RT, but this being a 4/5, I know Sentinel's conditional, but figured maybe we can try to kind of block up the ground a little bit while we set up the rest of our stuff. And we'll try Wrong Ride in this deck as well. We'll see if that works out. Just a card I want to try in general. And of course, Lando as a really big payoff. And yeah, we're just trying to kind of like gimmick our way into victories here. Try to use that resource cheat with DJ as much as possible. Mess with the opponent's board with a lot of these when played effects. And then create like big turns with New Adventure or Evacuate, where we release maybe multiple units that we paid less than rate for, and try to take control of the game that way. So let me know what you think of these new cards. Let me know what you think of DJ. Love to hear some more things that you think might synergize with this leader, because it is kind of a weird one, and there's other colors, of course, to look at. Blue is where I saw the most potential, at least early, because I just thought Lando was kind of a free roll in this deck. But I'm sure there's other versions you can kind of mess around with. But yeah, if this is the first time you've been to this channel, hope you stick around. For those of you who know me, well, thanks for the support. And until next time, take care.